Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First, a couple of quick things. The website continues to be updated for promotion and tenure. If you haven't gone out there and taken a look at it, please do so. I'm so appreciative to Caroline and Ashley Ayers and Jennifer and everyone that's helped with this. Please keep your feedback coming on it. We're still making some tweaks, and because we always want to have best in class and best practices, we're going to keep updating as we need to. Also, our videos are out now. Please go look at them. I really stressed on the timeline video that the candidates need to get in touch with you and get department and division dates from you. So go look at that video and then make sure you've downloaded the checklist, you've put your individual division and department deadlines in it, and that you've handed it out to your candidates that are going up this year. Remember too that we are going to do a kickoff. It is on the calendar for later this month. So more to come on that. If you haven't heard me say it, we are going to use the advancement app for at least one more year. Robert Pastor is helping me update it. We're currently in the middle of trying to get updated data out of Workday. We're reconfiguring some of the referee points because we want to make it easier for our external, for any referee to add their letter and everything. So much more information to come on that when we kick off. But today, I'm really excited to welcome 4 of our own who are going to talk through some of their best practices and share them with you. Please first welcome Dan Griffith from Emergency Medicine. Dan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Dan Griffith, and I'm virtually at Starbucks. Not really. I wish I was. But I've been at the School of Medicine. See, got a supporter right there. Been at the Emergency Medicine now since November of 2013, and I've been working P&T since that time.
All right, Carly from Orthopedic Surgery. Carly, I'm Pavelka Bacher. Did I do it right? Please correct me if I didn't.
You did, and I don't use my maiden name very often, but you did a great job.
All right.
So I am in orthopedic surgery. I am the administrative manager, and I've been in ortho and at UVA for 5 years.
Fantastic, thank you. Amanda Harris. There's no reason for me to butcher your name. So Amanda, are you here? I haven't seen her pop on. So she is otolaryngology, urology, and neurology. So we'll keep going, and then last but certainly not least, Terry. I see you there. She looks like she's on the phone. So I'm going to do Terry's introduction. Terry Washington is from the Department of Medicine. As we know, Department of Medicine is pretty large, and she's got several divisions underneath her. So her perspective is a little different because she works with the P&T contacts in each of those divisions, but I think her process will be helpful. Does anybody, I'm just looking to see if Amanda is popping on because she was supposed to be the first person to answer a question. So, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk through each quarter. So if you go out and pull the timeline, it's really, our process really is pretty much nice and neat. January, February to March, April to June, July, September, and then October to December, and then after that. And it kind of rounds itself out nicely. So what I'll do is talk a little bit about what's going on January to March, and then ask the questions of the panelists so that they can jump in and see tell us what they do. So in January to March, we're really getting ready for P&T. I'm configuring and sending out the academic review reports so that you all can check on people's eligibility. We're setting deadlines for the year. The departments are setting deadlines for the year, and we're all really starting to plan about who's going up, who's eligible. So my first question, and I'm just going to open this up to Amanda, Carly, Dan, or Terry. How do you review your academic review report, and who do you discuss it with?
I can start with that.
Okay.
So this year is a little bit different for us. So Dr. Chabra is department chair. Dr. Abel just retired last year. He was our vice chair for faculty affairs. And now we have Dr. Francis Shen as VP for faculty affairs. And so when I received the academic review report this year, I sent it out to all three of them because Dr. Abel is still fairly involved in our process. And I think orthopedics is fortunate because our department chair is very involved in the P&T process, as is Dr. Abel, as are Dr. Abel and Dr. Shen. So we knew, we had been talking about who was not only eligible, but well positioned to go up for promotion this cycle. So we had started talking about that in December. And so I think the academic review report just confirmed for us, what we had already discussed. So very involved with our chair and our vice chair for faculty affairs throughout the entire process.
Great.
So I would agree with Carly there, where we had started the initial conversation a little earlier than when we received the academic review report, in anticipation of receiving it earlier in the year. What I typically do is review the information once it comes out, and again, collaborate with the department chair, and then we have a designated P&T chair for neurology. So those two individuals, I send them the information, they confirm, and then move forward with inviting those individuals that are selected to submit their materials for review, and then we go ahead and schedule our spring meeting.
So everybody, Carly, Amanda, Dan, or Terry, do you feel like you've got a good grasp on that academic report, and you feel confident talking with your faculty about it? So you really are the owners of that, and you work between those faculty and between me if you have questions. Is that an accurate statement?
I would say that's accurate.
Correct.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yep. Great.
For me too, because we have our vice chair of P&T who looks it over, and then our chief. So yeah, I'm comfortable with this list that comes through. Then we can just present it to our faculty members.
Great. Okay. So next question, what do you do in January and March to prepare for the upcoming cycle? What do you do to ensure that you're organized? What do you do to ensure that your leaders are ready? And what do you do to ensure that your faculty who are going up that are ready? So let's take the first one. What do you do to prepare to make sure that you're organized? Dan, do you want to start us out?
Yes, no problem. One thing that we do in emergency medicine is around that January timeframe is we're actually looking at what records we have on these faculty members. What does their CV, what does it look like? What are we tracking on their clinical revenues, their work reviews, their publications? I actually reach out to them no later than the January timeframe to make sure they're updating any publications that they're pending or awaiting. Now is the time for them to reach out to push it to see if it can get published and all, what the data is before, come the March timeframe when they're trying to put their CVs together. So that way they have current publications and also their current revenues. So everything's up to date. They need to be proactive, and part of them being proactive is me reaching out reminding them that they're coming up this year, reminding them to work with their administrative assistants to update their records, getting everything lined up so it's a walk and not a sprint.
Great, thanks. Carly or Terry or Amanda, do you want to add?
Sure. We start our process a little bit earlier, and as soon as I get confirmation from our chair and our vice chair for faculty affairs as to which candidates are going to be going up in the current cycle, I reach out to each of them and just usually send them a reminder. So these are the items that we need to be working on now before we upload them to the system in June. And so what I start with is I start with the CV, and because most of them are pretty good about keeping their CVs updated, or their administrative assistant is good about keeping the CV updated. And so this year I started a little bit early because we've got 6 candidates going up, which is, a good amount for orthopedics. I know most of you, or some of you, probably have more candidates that go up each cycle. But I just let them know that as soon as I can get their CV, I can reach out to Andrea Denton in the Health Sciences Library, because the library, as most of you probably know, will run a report and send us all of the citation analysis data for the publications. And so I send Andrea the CV when it's in good shape for new faculty going up, so as lecturers or assistant professors. I send them the P&T CV format so that they've got a framework, and some of them use that to go ahead and start plugging in their information. Or sometimes I or an admin will help get them in their CV in good shape, that format.
I have a couple of questions if I could throw in. One, I'm wondering if you all, what your responsibilities are. I mean, is your main focus in the department P&T, or are you juggling other things too? Because it sounds a little labor intensive to me what you're doing. And then I guess secondly, about the citations and stuff, I'm usually asking Andrea in September for that information, just to try to have the numbers as high as possible. Is that something the rest of you are concerned about, or do you just get it whenever it's convenient?
So Leslie, I can say that promotion and tenure is not my only focus. It's just a part of my role. So it is a little labor intensive, but with the resources that the School of Medicine and the library has in place, it does make it a little more palatable. Reaching out to Andrea in the library. I mean, if you appreciate doing that process earlier, that's certainly fine. I do it along the same timeline as Carly, where once I know that a faculty member is going to go up for promotion, that's when we decide to make those contacts and start that process. But if you already know who you're going to go up for the following cycle, I don't see any reason why you can't do that earlier.
Oh, okay.
And I too, P&T is additional responsibility, but I also, once I get my list of who the people are, I begin a checklist. And my checklist is the beginning of what is needed for them, what is needed for myself, and I break it out. But then the timeline, once I know my list of candidates, I send out a timeline from beginning to end, right off the bat, to the faculty members who are going up, prospective candidates. And then I set meetings with their admin. So what I've created in medicine is, because we have 10 divisions, I have an admin or 2 in each division, and we've created a P&T team. So I personally don't go out and get it all. I'm training up admin in the divisions to work with their faculty members so that they can have a go-to of learning the process. And then I'm that person on the end that gathers all the stuff. But I've created a team of people to get ours going, because we can have anywhere from 15 to 20 plus a cycle.
Yeah.
And Leslie, knowing people on the call, I don't think anywhere we have a person that's 100% dedicated to P&T and does
Right.
nothing else.
Yeah.
I think everyone, I mean, we've got people in here that are department administrators. Amanda's forgive me, associate department administrator. So it just, the things are all over the board. So none of us really has the luxury to concentrate just on P&T.
But I guess what I am hearing, which sounds valuable, is to have other people in the process. And it seems like in anesthesiology, we pretty much have one person. I have somebody else helping me, and maybe we're too hands-on, but we reformat the CVs for our faculty and make sure they're in the correct order. But as far as looking at the portfolios and proofing and things like that, and answering lots of questions, it tends to be just one person.
And then let me say to that, from the faculty affairs in the School of Medicine perspective, we definitely want more than one person involved. We want the chair of the P&T committee or a group of faculty. One of the things that came out in the lean process was that really we should be asking the candidates for their first draft of their CV, their personal statement, and their referee letters so that we can have an initial review. And I know departments do it differently. Sometimes it's, they work with their mentor, sometimes it's a small group of faculty, but we definitely need faculty involved in reviewing these documents.
And we have faculty, I mean, we have our P&T committee that review it, but they're reviewing it in September.
So
in the past, that's how it happened.
Yeah, we're asking people to review a little quick sooner, if possible, to give feedback. And I know we have some departments that there isn't a lot of that feedback coming back and forth between the faculty committees or a mentor or faculty and the candidate. And we want to try and change that practice so that when you guys submit the button to say, okay, here's the CV, the personal statement, and the list of referees, it's in as perfect a form as it could be.
Right, and less stressful experience.
So Leslie, I do something similar to what Terry, Dan, and Carly have already touched base on, and I'm sure they do this too, but it just wasn't stated. Once we have the people that we know that are going up, I reach out to them via email and I copy our chair, and then the promotion and tenure committee that's going to actually review that individual's information. And I just, I give them a link to say, hey, everything you could possibly need to know about promotion and tenure is here. And then I go into saying, hey, that's a lot of information, so let me break it down for you based on our timelines of when things are going to be due. So then I give them a link to their specific criteria for their promotion. So if they're going for associate professor, I give them the link to, what the criteria is for associate professor on their respective track. Then like in bold print, I say, hey, your first deadline this year is June 4th.
Yeah.
These are the specific things in bullet points, because it's easier to see bullet points in an email, what's going to be due on that first timeline. And then like specific links to resources. So, your personal statement's due. So here's a link to sample personal statements. Your CV is due. So, here, and I actually attach a template saying if it's not already in P&T format, this is the format it needs to be in. If you need help, let me know. And then your referees are due that same deadline. So here is a link to the criteria for selecting your referees and so forth and so on. So and then I give them a link to the whole timeline, like Terry said, to say, hey, from beginning to end, this is what you're looking at for the next several months until you submit your final portfolio, just so that the candidate's on the same page as the chair and the promotion and tenure committee, so they all know this information has been communicated, these are the expectations, and if you need help, I'm here to help you. Reach out to me and let me know.
And we do want you all using the same list for this. So I'm hoping everybody's downloading the one that we put on the website. And as always, if there's anything that's missing and we can update it, please let us know, because what we were trying to do is form a consistent practice across all the departments and divisions. So what I'm hearing in January to March is that this is a lot of time to identify the candidates, make sure that they get the resources they need to know how to complete their first submissions, and they see the timeline of the whole entire process. Is there anything else from January to March timeframe that anybody has a question about before we take the step into the next quarter? Okay, so from April to June, this is when really the CVs, the personal statements, and the referee lists are coming together. Remember, this year, there's an earlier due date in May that you all are going to need to make sure you put your candidates into the app. And remember how we did the debrief last year? And I showed you not only the entry screen, but this other screen where you needed to put in their current rank and their rank after promotion and tenure. We're going to make sure everybody's doing that this year. We're going to cover it in training, so don't worry about it. And we also need to make sure that the referee lists are 20 people and that we have the correct mix of referees. So I'm going to start down through my April to June questions. Dan, why don't we start with you? Who do the candidates submit their personal statement and CV to for review? What is your process of review and how are you involved?
Okay, well, we have multiple people who review their CV and their personal statements. The first thing we do is we have their admin assistant looking at it. And primarily what they're doing, they're reading over it to make sure that from a person who's not a provider of that field of medicine, does it make sense? Is it readable? Does it flow? Does the CV marry up, each section? And does the personal statement, when you read it, does it work well? Does it sound well? Because if it's not readable, then no one's going to really read it. And then after they look at it, it goes back to the faculty to make any adjustments. And then the faculty member will send it to me. I'll make sure that the chair of our P&T committee gets it. I'll make sure that our vice chair of faculty development gets it, and our chair of the department gets it. So we all review it as well for feedback to them. So we're trying to make sure as we go through that it's not, nothing should be a surprise later on. And the thing I've learned over the years is getting the admin assistant involved early and keeping them engaged makes everyone's job so much easier, because they're the ones who have a little more time on their hands potentially to relate to them, connect with them, flow with them, go back and forth, make recommendations. They're that initial set of eyes. So we're not having to look and, is there a period? Is there a comma? That's already taken care of. We're looking for substance matters. We're looking for facts, things of that nature. So the admin is definitely the key to that natural flow.
So Carly, Terry, or Amanda, anything to add that you do differently?
But for this new site, the new flow now with the mentors, our faculty member is responsible to have it reviewed by their chief and their two mentors first before it even comes to me. The admins look at it, and then once the admins get it, they send it to me. I put it in a file for our P&T chair. He then reviews the 3 documents along with me, and he has Dr. Rosner looking at it before, and then we make any recommendations or changes. So since the new change of them must having mentors and it being reviewed first, we've put that in place this cycle. So it's for the first time this time, I think it seems like it's 2 or 3 in each division before it even gets to us for the admin, the referees. So it's several hands, several eyes that are looking at it based on this new process. So we're pushing that. And I've given a little bit more leeway because it's all new. And then they have until I think the 25th to get it to Dr. Dawkins and myself, a review, so that then we can review it before the deadline of May. So
Great. Thank you. Carly or Amanda?
About the same for orthopedics. So the candidates will, they don't always send all 3 components at the same time. So they'll work on their CV first, and they will send that to all 3 or all 4 in this case. And so the CV, all the components come to me, to our chair, to our vice chair for faculty affairs. And since Dr. Abel retired last year, and we have Dr. Shin new in the process, these materials are coming to all 4 of us. And I don't usually get a lot of feedback on the CV because it's in pretty good shape. And so I start that citation analysis entry process. I wait to hear from our chair until he has reviewed the referee list, because he has to sometimes add referees, right? He has to make those selections, or he has to confirm the chair selections and the referees. And then the personal statement, since there's a lot of narrative there, the first thing I do with it is I review it for grammar and typos, because sometimes they're, coming in pretty pretty rough shape. So yeah, we're all kind of reviewing them together, but we all do different things. We all act in different ways.
I would agree with all 3. I don't have anything additional to add.
Okay. So let's talk specifically about referees. Who looks up the information for referees? Does the candidate do it? Do you do it? Does someone else? And how do you ensure that the mix of referees is accurate at the information that's provided is accurate? Who wants to go first?
So I can. For us, the candidates are responsible for gathering the information with their admin support. Their chief and the candidate review, because I'm supposed to have a mix of chief and candidate of who chose who. So that's left up to them. And now, because of the mentors, they're reviewing to make sure. And then it gets sent to Dr. Dawkins. Dr. Dawkins reviews. So my candidates and the chief are responsible with their admin support of gathering information.
So Terry's more organized than I am. We usually get our referee lists in different, different states. So sometimes I'll get just a list of names, and it's usually been broken out between internal, external, independent. And then I work with our admins to kind of split up the work, so that, if they're working on the CV, I'll take over the referee list. But I've also had admins in the past help with the referee list. And everybody knows what the deal is. We have to usually Google the faculty member if we only have a name. And so we know they're at freshman or, a different institution. And so we try to find a number for the administrative team at the other institution. We'll get a hold of, sometimes we reach the clinic and they have to transfer us. So there's a lot of research that goes into this process. Sometimes we get the referee list with, the institution and a phone number, so we have a good starting point. But a lot of the times that I'm the one doing the research on, the phone number, the email, and the rank.
So our process is very similar to Carly's. I'm less organized than Terry too, so I think we can all take some tips and tricks from her. But usually we end up getting just a list of names. Some faculty will provide emails or phone numbers. We're not collecting phone numbers this year, but they'll give partial information and then ask for help. I've only had one in the past 8+ years that have given me all of their contact information, and that's because they were super organized and already had it handy. But for the most part, we're tracking that information down. A lot of times when I can't find an email and administrative support at the partnering institution is not willing to give that information, there are some backdoor tricks that you can use to find it. So if you have a referee on your list that is a big publisher, and if you do a PubMed search of that referee's name in PubMed and they are a first or corresponding author, a lot of times their email is listed as the corresponding author. So you can find their email that way if an institution is reluctant to give that information up. That's just an extra tip or trick if you're having trouble finding the information.
Dan, anything to add?
The one thing we do is my admins will get the information out as much as they can, and they'll highlight anyone they have questions with, like if they're tenureship or if not tenured and things of that nature. And one thing I've learned over the years is when in doubt, call HR. Find the HR office for that institution and reach out to them because they understand a lot of times the P&T process. So where some of the other institution admins may be very, well, one, they may not know. They may not know if they're tenured or not. And second, they may be very removed from it, not wanting to give information out, where I've reached out to the HR departments, told them who I was, what I'm working on, and they're like, okay, here's the information you need. So the HR departments and a lot of institutions have become really helpful in this process.
Fantastic. And let me just restate what Amanda said. This year, we are not going to ask you to find phone numbers. And again, when we do the kickoff, there'll be much more information available about that. Also, I wanted to ask our panelists, this is an insertion question from the original list of questions. In talking with a number of you, sometimes the administrative assistant for the faculty member says, oh, send it to me, don't send it to that faculty member. Does that happen to people, and how do you go about handling that? Do you submit the administrative assistant's email instead of the faculty member's email? How have you handled that in the past? Carly, I see you shaking your head.
So I sometimes the administrative assistant, if they get a call saying, oh, I'm so-and-so at UVA working on promotion and tenure. I mean, we all get a lot of calls wanting information on our positions. And so they can be leery of giving out information. And so sometimes I offer to say, okay, I understand your concerns. Can we list your email? And then if you receive the email from our dean, you can just share it with your faculty member. And they're always agreeable in that case. And sometimes they'll give me their email address, but they'll give me the faculty member's address as well. And they just say that sometimes, you know, Dr. So-and-so isn't great about checking his email, but this way, if you've got 2 emails. And what I do when I upload them to Advancement app, if I've got 2 email addresses, I'll list both of them with just a semicolon separating them.
So is it helpful to have 2 submissions? Is it helpful to have 2 spots for emails? So that it goes to 2.
It's helpful to be able to add the administrative assistant in addition to the faculty member. We've, not that I'm saying there's anything against it. We've never submitted an administrative assistant's email as the primary email for the contact. But there have been times where the admin has been resistant. They didn't want to give out the email because they either didn't know they were new or it was against policy to do so. So the thing that I've typically done to extract that information is to say, would you mind contacting your chair and let them know that Howard Goodkin and the Department of Neurology at the University of Virginia is requesting this individual's email for purposes of promotion and tenure to solicit a letter of reference. And then I've never had someone come back and tell me no after I've name dropped, hey, our chair at this institution wants the information for this purpose. They typically will call back and give it to me. But I've never submitted an admin, but I think it would be very helpful, even if from a reminder standpoint, because a lot of times we get, no responses. And then when we request that a reminder be sent, they're like, oh yeah, I saw that, I forgot. Whereas if their admin is copied originally, maybe it would move the process forward faster.
Yeah, I've had a few people ask to be copied as well. A few assistants asked to be copied on whatever correspondence. So it would be helpful to have that second spot.
Yeah, the second spot would come in handy because a lot of times these letters are due during the summer months. And I've had several faculty who I've reached out to, and they're like, "Oh, could you put my Gmail down too? Because I might be on vacation while this is needed, and I'm not checking my work email." And then they do get back from vacation, and we're one of 3,000 emails sitting in their inbox. So the second slot would definitely become quite useful.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that feedback. Okay, so that kind of takes us April to June. I'm going to move us into July to September, and this is when we start getting into development of the portfolios. So please know we're working on a nomenclature shift, and you're going to see this on the website. The entire candidate submission is going to be called the dossier. The dossier is going to be split into 3 sections. One is the candidate information. That's mainly what we've been talking about: the CV, the personal statement, the referee list. Their job description also goes under that information. Then there's the information the department submits. And then the final piece is the portfolio piece. That's where they document their excellence and they document their service. So we've walked through the process where you turn in the candidate names, and now you've turned in their CV and their referee list and their personal statement. My office is sending out all the requests to the referees. We're starting to get referee letters back in. We're answering questions to referees. So here we are in July to September. And our first question is, how do you present the portfolios to your department P&T committee? Amanda, do you want to start?
Sure. So what I typically do is create a single PDF of each section the same way that it would be uploaded to currently the advancement app, which next year will likely be different. But so however I'm uploading it to the system, that's how I present it to them. Some request access to the system so that they can just access it. But we also upload it to Colab and share it through Colab as well to the P&T committees. The individuals that don't like Colab for whatever reason, they access it through the advancement app. But that's how they're presented it. We used to provide hard copies, and last year we decided that we weren't going to do that because we were all virtual, which was very helpful. So there's no paper in our process any longer. We present everything as PDF versions, either through Colab or the advancement app.
That deserves a round of applause. Trees everywhere are very happy with that. Terry,
You don't want to
Darren?
ask me.
Terry, we're going to get you out of that as soon as we possibly can.
So you would be happy to know that we're going to work on it this year. Because what I do is I have the staff, they present their files to me all PDF. I used to get them Word and I change them. I don't. How I need to upload them is how they need to submit them to me. But they are to create 2 binders, one for Dr. Dawkins, the medicine P&T chair, but one for the reviewer, because we have our meetings in person around the table, dinner, and we keep a copy all year. So Dr. Dawkins' copy is kept in the office until the next cycle, just in case. But this year we're gonna work on electronic versions, but the admins are to submit when it's time of submission. I give them a due date. They are to submit to me all PDFs. I don't convert. I don't do any of that. Then I upload them to the advanced app system, but I keep a file that Dr. Dawkins can get to in medicine that all their documents are uploaded to. And then we have our meeting, and I vote from there. But we're working on saving a branch. I can't say a tree. We're working on
Progress is good.
Save it. Yeah. But Dr. Dawkins, because he makes notes and writes, and then if, there's a denial or something, we have all these notes that he likes to keep hands-on, but we're working on that.
Great.
Can I just ask a quick question? You know, it ties back into my, you know, how much time are people spending on this? It sounds like other departments have various admins assigned to faculty. Is that what I mean? I mean, in anesthesiology, we have like 65 faculty. None of them have an admin assigned to them. So if I'm putting up 11 people this year for promotion and tenure, I'm doing all the work. I other than the P&T committee who historically in the past has looked at the last minute, but it sounds like you all are saying you have an admin person that maybe has 5 or more faculty assigned to them and they're involved in this process too. Is that right?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, because I
Yes.
used to do what you did, and I
But
had
you
them
know,
all.
Leslie, that's not true in all departments. I think it's true in these bigger
Bigger.
clinical departments, but I'm in a basic science department. I am the department administrator. We don't have any admin support that's giving this level of care in that regard to the faculty. Like I'm the only administrative person that looks at their stuff.
And how many typically do you have going up, Jolene?
We don't have the numbers that Terry and them do. I mean, this year we've got 3, I think.
Okay. I mean, that's why I'm freaking out, because 11 going up, I don't have the time to give the attention to detail because I'm doing 15 other things in the department for the chair, my boss.
So Leslie, we should talk to John. Let's put our heads together and see what we can do to provide some assistance. I'll contact you.
Okay, so, sorry to get us off.
No. This is exactly why we need to have this forum. These are great discussions. This is why we want to help each other and talk about how we do it. And this is exactly what we wanted to discover during this process.
Thank you.
So,
Your name was mentioned.
so next time, oh, is he there?
Yes.
So my next question is, do you attend your departmental P&T? Hi, John. Do you attend your departmental P&T committee meetings? And if you do, what's your role? Carly, do you want to start?
I have an uninteresting answer, and it is that I don't attend the meeting. But you know, I've never really asked if I should, and I've never been invited. I probably will ask to join the meeting this year just because Dr. Shen is relatively new to the process. But if I was to attend, it would probably just be as an.
Dan?
I don't attend. What I do is I coordinate it. I make sure everyone knows where it's at. They have access to the PDFs or the Dropbox, and I'll let them go into the closet and beat each other around, knock each other around until they come out with an answer.
Terry?
Do attend. I
And what-
attend. I take notes. I also, because we do our count in the room, I take the anonymous vote. So no one knows who's a yay or nay. And then I collect the information from the committee members of their binders and stuff. I collect all that so they don't keep after our meeting. Everything's turned it back into me. And then at the end, Dr. Dawkins and I meet, I tally up, you know, so they'll know at each vote, yay or nay, before we move forward. If there's a, you know, defer what needs to be discussed, I take all the notes and then create a note for Dr. Dawkins for the next morning so that he can present it to Dr. Rosner. And then I create the vote sheet. So yeah, I'm at it from beginning to end.
Great.
And we
Thanks,
have like
Amanda.
a 2 or 3 hour meeting.
So I have a process that is very, very almost identical to Terry's. So I attend, I take the minutes, I do a follow-up summary, I give it to the P&T chair the following, well, it's not the following day, I'm not that efficient, Terry, but within the next week. And that's not just so that, well, it's so that we have a summary of what happened in the vote, but we also use the information that just comes out in conversation to help populate that, not the job description form, but the new P&T form that we have to submit that shows, like, that breaks out scholarly activity and service, etc. Because a lot of that information gets teased out in just the conversation piece. So as we're going through the meeting, I have each individual form for each person that we know is going up. And I'm making sure that I'm matching the notes to the sections that have to be populated in that form that gets turned in at the end of the cycle.
That's a perfect transition because my next question is, are you involved in putting together the form, that's the submission, and it exactly includes the committee vote, their effort, the summary of the deliberations. So sounds like Amanda is involved in that. Dan, what about you?
I am not. What we do is we have two full professors sitting on, at least two professors on the committee, in addition to other faculty members. And either the chair of the committee or the vice chair for faculty development take down exactly what's needed and complete the form. And then they send it to me and I'll review it and make edits before it goes to our department chair.
Okay. Carly, what about you?
Again, I'm lucky because Dr. Abel has always done that. So he, and I'm assuming it's just him, he's taking the minutes during the meeting and all the notes. And I think actually he is so organized that he probably starts to fill in those detailed sections before the meeting. So he knows what to come in with the meeting and how to present it to all of the people.
Terry, I'm assuming you're involved in helping put in the letters together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you all a question. This is one place where these letters get put together. This data comes up to my office, and then I have to extract it all out, type it into another place, and put it all into my documents. It's an incredibly laborious effort. If we put something together electronically, where you could put all this information in one place and then mail merge your letters, and then I picked up the data and did it again, is that something people are willing to entertain?
So explain to me as far as the mail merge. I mean, I'm willing to entertain because we got to do it. Explain to me.
So what I'm trying to do is establish one point of entry for this data. So when you put it in, it doesn't come up and I have to put it into a different place.
Oh. So would that, if we're submitting it, can we just submit it twice, but into your?
That's an option too, but I don't want to make you do double work. So let's do that.
Submission. Like
Yes.
if I'm submitting it to the app, right?
Yep.
Could I not just then submit it to your, it's another click.
You could. So let's do this. I'm going to put a pin in this discussion and I'm going to pull several of you in, several of you bigger departments in that have to do this for multiple people, because if you're doing one or two, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're doing 5 or 10 or 15, it's a bigger deal. Let's see if we can make this process a little easier this year. I want to keep going because we've only got about 10 minutes left. What do you do to final check all the submissions before adding them to the app? Terry, you want to start?
So I have a checklist. And like I said, my checklist goes from beginning to end and even to the revisions. So once I get at the end of our meeting, there are revisions because they have up until our meeting to make changes. I just make sure I have the revisions. And once I have the revisions off my checklist, I just sit down with my checklist, pull up the app, and I just go from person to person and just check it off. So.
Great. Carly?
Same as Terry, I'm become a little OCD. Once I've uploaded everything to advancement app and I go and I check it, everybody on one day, just make sure I have everything there, and then I'll go in the next morning. You never know. It gets deleted sometimes, or it just goes through. I'm a little OCD there, but nothing fancy otherwise.
Dan?
I'm very much the same way. I go in, I make sure I have everything labeled like it's going to be submitted. I make sure I read through, there's no pages flipped or flopped, the numbers are matching, again, it's part of the collective OCD issues I think we've adopted in life.
Amanda, anything different?
I'm part of the OCD team. I have a checklist for my checklist to make sure that it's up there, and I just go through and similar to Terry, like I have, like if it's done, it gets a check. If it's not done, like final form, it gets like a different follow-up icon that I put in there, and until it has a green check mark, it's not done and finalized.
Great. So my next question, I know this rarely happens, but in case, what do you do when a candidate is not meeting your deadlines?
That's rare.
Yeah. I was just trying to throw a little, humor into this. So Amanda, why don't you start? What do you do if somebody's not meeting your deadlines?
So I give them the benefit of the doubt first, and I will send them a reminder and copy their admin, just to say, hey, just following up. We have this. Actually, I do like an email before the deadline to say, hey, this is a reminder. I haven't received this. Your deadline is coming up, and I copy their admin. If it gets past the date, I ask their admin if they know the status, and if they don't, then I send another reminder, but I copy the P&T chair. And no one likes for Dr. Quigg or Brad Kessler to be copied on the emails. So I typically get information after we get to that step. But they get a couple of reminders throughout, before the deadline, and then right after, and then the P&T chair has to get involved. And we set our internal deadline about a month before like the final deadline, just in case we do have someone that happens to be on vacation, or they had an emergency, or they happen to be on call and they requested an extension. So we're pretty flexible, but we do give the reminders, and then we bring in the higher administration if we have to.
Okay. Does anybody do anything differently than that?
Well, historically, we've been always extremely flexible. And in years past, it was, the committee's getting ready to meet or have met, and they come up, oh, I forgot, I need to. And over the years, I don't know if it's just getting crankier and crankier with age, but our group has decided that if it's not a must, we start telling people deadlines when they get their faculty evaluation the year before they want to go up. So none of these dates are like a surprise to them. So what we've started this year is, unless you're a must, if you don't make a deadline, you know what? You're ahead of the game for next year. It's one of those, the faculty has to take personal accountability and responsibility. Because otherwise they will keep pushing that marker until poor Sue's emailing me going, Dan, where's your stuff? And, it's to the point where if they're wanting that promotion, it is their own personal desire. It's a professional desire. They need to be accountable for it. So with Dr. Brady and Dr. Holstead being our chairs or vice chairs this year, we've said, here are the deadlines, make them, or you're ahead of the game for next year.
Oh. Carly or Terry, anything different?
No.
Not really. I mean, I'm giving updates to our chair and vice chair on a regular basis. I would say monthly, and so we never let it get too far. If someone I think when we see delays, it's in the January to March, or actually April to May, when we're getting close to having to submit cases. And if someone is behind, then the chair and vice chair know about it, and Dr. Cabra will send a very stern email and just say the same thing that Dan was saying, that, you know what, if we don't have your materials, we're not going to put you up. It doesn't happen that often for us, because everyone knows that Dr. Cabra will get involved.
It's nice to have the backing of your faculty and that strong arm example. I think that working as a team to set the deadlines and be clear about it, and then know that your leadership's going to back you up, makes a huge difference. So, so my last question is, how do you communicate with your candidates during the process after you've submitted? So it's October 1, you've pushed the button, everything is into me. do you let your candidates know that it's been submitted? And then when else do you communicate with them after that? Carly, do you want to start?
Sure. So after everything has been uploaded to the system, I do send out an email to each candidate. I copy the chair and the vice chair, and I say everything's been uploaded. And sometimes they don't even respond. And I think that's the message that I give to all of them after that. If someone asks, say in November or December, I just always let them know that no news is good news, and we haven't heard anything. So you're just gonna need to be patient, and we'll learn more in the coming months.
Dan?
So for us, after our meeting, Dr. Dawkins lets people know, if there's issues, but then it's up to us for the October submission that I send in. So he says, all went well. Or he tells the chiefs all went well after our September meeting. So when October comes, we don't send an update unless we then hear something back from the school that we may need extra something. So we don't send anything after our meeting because it's like what Carly says, no news is good news until you hear from us.
Okay.
And that's how we do it in emergency medicine too, is, no news is good news, but be aware that if I email you for something, it's typically going to be short suspense. I need responses. So kind of the same concept of, hey, stay relaxed, don't worry about it. But if you see something coming in, don't put it off. I need your assistance and support to get feedback on it.
Because one of the things that may not have come up after our meeting, if say for instance, John Doe had a problem, doing our vote or needed to correct something, we then give them a deadline so that we can still continue to meet our October 1 submission. So that's the communication when there's issues with them, right after our meeting or that evening of, Dr. Dawkins begins to send emails out, notifying them what changes need to be. And then here's a hard deadline to make the correction, because then we need to review it again. If it needs to, require another vote or something, we got to get that vote in, that we don't try to go past the October 1 deadline.
Amanda, anything different?
No, it's pretty much the same. I usually do shoot a quick email right after just to say, it's been completely submitted. If you don't hear anything, no news is good news, and you will receive an official communication, I think in either late May or early June, whenever the Board of Visitors meeting is scheduled, that notifies you of the effective date of July 1 for your promotion.
Yeah. The other thing to remind your candidates is, if anyone is not being recommended to move forward, they're going to get notification on February 1st. So that's the other piece of information that you might want to be giving them. We are at time. So I want to do two things. First and foremost, let's give our panelists a hand. Thank you all for coming out and helping us today and sharing your wisdom. Second thing is, if you still have questions that you didn't get answered, please send them to me. You can pop them in a Teams chat. You can email them to me. Let me grab them together, and then we're going to make sure that we get answers back to everyone, because I'm sure if you have that question, others have that question. So thanks again to everybody for tuning in. Information is coming about our kickoff meeting, and we'll see everybody soon.
Ellen.